Ready? Good evening. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 8th. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District Board of Education. Ms. Stoichler, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Coco? Mr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Item B, approval of agenda. Number 1, motion to approve the agenda. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the agenda of the February 8th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one singular motion unless a member of the Board of Education, Treasurer, or Superintendent requests that any item be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you. Item C, opening ceremony. Welcome. Our vision, Cuyahoga Falls City Schools, the hub of our community, committed to a culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. Our vision, every student, every day, every opportunity. Number 2, informational items. This meeting is a meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not a public community meeting, although there are opportunities for public participation. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic found on the meeting agenda, the individual must complete a registration form found inside the attendance notebook and present it to the treasurer. Following the introduction of the topic by the board president, followed by board discussion, the individual will be recognized. If an individual wishes to address the board regarding a topic not found on the meeting agenda, they must notify the superintendent and/or board president of the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, the individual will preface comments by announcement of their name and address and limit the comments to 3 minutes. All statements should be directed to the board president. No person may address or question board members individually. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address shown on the screen, and for your convenience, there are hard copies on the librarian's desk over in the corner. We have a Finance Committee of the Board of Education on February 14th, 2023 at 9 a.m. in the Board of Education meeting room at 431 Stowe Avenue. And the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is February 22nd, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. right here in the Cuyahoga Falls High School Library. And now for our Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. White.
If you'll please stand and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Item D is our presentations. First is Lincoln Music Class. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Selico to introduce the Lincoln Music Class.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez, and thank you for all of you who are here this evening. If you recall, January is Board Appreciation Month, and so we had a few little festivities and goodies planned for our board members, but if you recall that, I would say snowy day, but it didn't turn out to be so snowy after all, but we were all home from school that day, and so as a result, we postponed our singers for you Board of Education members. We have a little celebration here, and they were so kind to reschedule and come back, so I want to thank parents and guardians, whoever was able to bring your children here this evening. We're much appreciated. So Ms. Krumrig is here from Lincoln, and I think this is 4th or 5th grade, or both? 5th grade. Okay, so we are very anxious to hear you sing to us.
May I say something real quick? Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to reschedule this opportunity.
Okay.
I just wanted to share a little bit about this piece. The piece is called Don't Be Afraid to Be Different, and these students, along with the rest of their class, wrote this song last year. Their 4th grade concert was called I'm Unique and focused on our social emotional health and learning. And so in the process of deciding what we wanted to put in that concert, I'm pretty sure one of the kids in this group said, why don't we write our own song? And so we did. So we brainstormed lyrics, we worked on rhyme scheme, and we all put it together. So this is their composition. So enjoy.
Awesome. think you've moved a few people.
I think
here.
Happy tears. It's okay. They're happy tears. It was so good. Oh.
Well, it's fitting to follow that up with our next presentation because next up we're going to recognize some of our older musicians at the high school level for their excellence in music. So something to look up to for our younger kids. So our next presentation is our OMEA Solo and Ensemble Contest Recognition. Dr. Solico, please.
Thank you. I think I'm going to move to the podium. And thank you again all for that wonderful performance. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Didn't know it was going to be an original piece.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow. Very appropriate.
That was absolutely awesome.
All right. So as Mr. Gomez has shared, we have more musicians to honor this evening. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be able to do so. And I love that you are here this evening. So if I may just say a few remarks. Each year, the districts within the Ohio Music Educational Association, known as OMEA, host adjudicated events to challenge musicians in a small group setting or as a soloist. Each event, whether a solo or an ensemble, is performed in front of an OMEA judge for a rating. The instrumental music department had 16 students prepare solos to perform at this year's OMEA event held at Barberton High School. The students earned a total of 12 superior ratings and 4 excellent ratings. We are extremely proud of how these talented musicians continue to represent Cuyahoga Falls High School. And from what I'm told, I was never a musician. I have a great appreciation for the arts. You just don't ever want to hear me sing or try to play an instrument. But I do love it and have a great appreciation. But I do hear how difficult it is to gain these prestigious awards, and so you should be commended for that, and I'm really glad that you're here this evening. So what I'm going to do is call you up, hopefully not ruin your name as I say your name. I did see some of these that are a little challenging, and there were a few students that were here this evening. I said, can you just tell me your name? And they were all easy ones. I'm like, well, this doesn't help. I need to find ones that are more difficult. So I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to ask that you come forward, and I would typically shake your hand, but I think I'm going to refrain. I did Purell just previously just because I'm maybe fighting a little something, so I don't want to pass anything along. I know I don't have COVID though because I did test, so we're all good. So that's the good news. All right, so first up we have Anna Reichert, who is here this evening. So congratulations. Maddie Rupert. Next we have, Holly Sonier. How did you do? Alex Wentz. I know Alex is here. I know she's not here this evening. Maddie Wagner, so we'll make sure she gets that. Right? Gabby Malika. Right, because I thought you have a sister too or something. Did I say your last name? Lillian Ing. Audrey Keenan. Hannah Kilker. Amelia Malika. Jacob Graham. Noah Adkins. Andy Ball. You're all the way in the back there. Crap. Dominic is not here this evening. Campesini. I think that's right. Dorian Sivek or Sivek? Nope, he's on my not being able to attend list as well. And Kylie D. what your specific award was for. So we're just gonna go down the line, and you're going to tell what award you received.
Oh, I got a 1. I also got a 1. I also got a 1.
Well, stop, time out. We don't know what that means. One, I might be like, wow, one.
Like their instrument.
So I'm sure that's
Your
much
instrument.
better. So tell me which one, Anna?
Oh, so the rating system is a 1 through 5, 1 being the best, and then 1 through 5. I play trumpet and I got a 1.
Thank you.
Okay.
I play horn and I got a 1. I play trombone and I have a 1.
I play flute and I got a
I play the flute and I got a 1. I play the flute and I got a 1. I play the flute and I got a 2. I play the oboe and I got a 2. I play the flute, I got a 1.
I play the trumpet, I got a 2. I play trombone, I got a 1. I play the snare drum, I got a 1.
I played horn, I got a 1.
Congratulations. Do we need to get them in a different way for a photo? So Mr. Fry's gonna bring you. Thank you to the family members who are here this evening as well. Thank you.
All right, things up, and big smiles, 1s and 2s. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Just count to 2.
Yeah.
Good job. Well,
1, 2, no, 3, 0.
you're free to leave if you want. You're free to stay if you want, but I know you probably don't want to. But you can if you'd like. But you're free to leave if you'd like. Thank you for coming and
Thank you.
thank you
Congratulations.
for letting us honor you for your accomplishment.
Yes, thank you.
Now for presentation number 3, CFHS Program of Studies, Mrs. Dudones.
Ms. Bogdan asked me to apologize. She's conducting interviews right now.
Okay.
And so I texted her, but they still have somebody in with them, so she can't be here. Okay. So thank you for having me tonight. You have received a copy of the marked up program of studies, and so I was just going to go over the additions and the changes, and then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, or you can email them to Dr. Southwell and Dr. Cruz after the meeting, and we're happy to address them then. So the first thing that we added this year is called Rise Up. It's on page 23, and Rise Up is a course that will help our students receive credentials. They can earn 12-point credentials, which is something that is part of our graduation requirements. And specifically, Rise Up relates to the retail establishment. And so we actually just met with the company again yesterday. So basically, students learn all about the retail industry and just kind of the fundamentals behind that. And then they learn about customer service. And there's an online platform. There are textbooks. They said typically people just do the online platform. This will most likely be taught by our business teacher, Mrs. Palmisano. And it's a great way. Our first goal is to get next year's seniors enrolled who may be in danger of not graduating for another reason, and then potentially open it up to other students as well. But that's kind of our first goal there. After the students take the courses, then they take an assessment to earn the credential. Students are allowed to retake if they don't do well. And immediately after they take the test, they get the results, and they right away can see like the areas where they need to go back and study. It actually provides that for them. There's one little trick that they shared with us yesterday, which is it only provides it right then. They can't go back. So we're going to have to like teach them to transfer some of that information so that if they need to retake the test, they know where to go.
Our next edition is called Cradle to Grave, Myths of Creation and Destruction. And so this is falling under our English electives, and it will actually be taught by our Latin teacher, who has this she has the knowledge to do that. But basically, it's just going through all the various myths of, from different places, and, people all have, I don't know how many times in my life I've heard the world was going to end, Y2K and this, that, and the other thing. But this is actually going back to the actual myths that were written about that and what do different societies have to say about that. We feel like a lot of students, we know that each year we have a lot of students that are interested in mythology, and we thought this was kind of a good way to focus that. So that is that course. On pages 35 and page 74, so we're adding a financial literacy class. Page 35 is part of our Family and Consumer Science program, so we already had a very similar course previously. We renamed it Financial Literacy because we wanted it to be very clear that this is the financial literacy requirement that is starting for this year's 9th grade students. We do have some students taking financial literacy this year, so that will count for them. And then next year, students will either take this with our FCS teachers or with one of our social studies teachers. One of the strange things, in my opinion, is that when ODE added this requirement for financial literacy, it can be taught in Family and Consumer Science. That's not strange, but it can be taught by a social studies teacher, but not a math teacher without additional training, and they still don't know what the training is. So we're going the social studies route because those skills have been included previously in our American government, and it's a semester course. And so that's why that we have it in 2 places. We want students to make sure to see it. The next course that we're adding is called Upcycling from Trash to Treasure, and that's on page 43. And we are making some changes in our public arts class. So that it's just an arts course. This upcycling course is for students who have completed Metals 1 and they want to have kind of that artistic nature. So they're literally going to be taking things and repurposing them. Upcycling, as you probably know, is pretty popular right now, and we feel like students will really like that. And for those students who have been in woodworking or in metals, it's a good way for them to continue that learning and making it very practical to their lives. The next course that we're adding, or proposing to add, I guess I should say, is the Data Science Foundations course. So this is a pilot from the Ohio Department of Education, similar to the Mathematical Modeling and Reasoning course that we added last year. So it comes with training for the teachers. Throughout the year, they'll do a summer, 4 or 5 days in the summer, and then training throughout the year. And basically, so Dr. Cruz and Ms. Bogdan and I met with some of the counselors and the math department chair and talked about, there are a few pilots that we could have applied for. We didn't want to overextend ourselves, but this is another Algebra 2 alternative. So students can take Algebra 2 and take this course, or they can take this as a replacement for Algebra 2. And that was new starting this year, that we were able to use these courses as Algebra 2 replacements. But basically, it's teaching students how to think critically about data as they see it. Those of us who have created graphs in the past know that you can make a graph say pretty much whatever you want, and so it's really teaching them to be critical consumers and learning how to do that. And it's going to have a similar approach to the mathematical modeling reasoning, where it's going to be very real world, hands-on, making it make sense. It's not just worksheets or go online to the program sort of thing. Again, the entire curriculum is created and shared through the Ohio Department of Education. It's free to us to use, and then the only cost to us would be the training. We've been paying teacher stipends because they give up a lot of their personal time for the training. On page 56, we're adding a class called Making Modern Music. And this is talking about the basics of commercial music. And students are going to be able to work individually or in small groups. They're going to compose music and perform it. They will get to choose an instrument that they want to use for the class, and then the teacher will help facilitate how that's all going to work together. We are asking that students have to have some prior experience with the instrument. It's not intended to teach how to play an instrument. It's really giving them, again, some practical experience in using it and what that could mean and look like for them. On page 67, forensic science. So this is a course that has been offered in some of our area high schools, and we're excited to bring it here. Again, it's something we think that students will be really interested in, and because students need at least 3 science credits to graduate, we want to continue to try and come up with offerings that we think will engage them. Students will be applying the scientific process using forensic analysis. There are procedures and principles of crime scene investigation. My daughter took it when she was in high school, and she's now finishing her major at Mountain Union as a criminal justice major. So it's, it's something, again, a student who's really interested in that sort of thing, this is going to be their niche. And it's a 1-year course, not just a semester, so it will really give them time to really dig into a lot of different areas. On page 83, I apologize, I know your sheet says 81, but it's on page 83. Our Latin teacher has received the credentialing necessary to become an adjunct professor for Kent State University, and so she'd like to offer a College Credit Plus Latin course for our students who are ready to advance in that. We had a lot of discussion about AP versus CCP. Those typically draw the same students, and so we like the idea of the CCP because they can automatically get that college credit, and then they can move on when they get to college if they wanted to do that. On page 82, American Sign Language. So we are super excited about offering American Sign Language. We are also extremely hopeful to find a teacher. That will be our biggest challenge. All the area districts that have added it, the courses are booming. They're offering multiple sections, but we have heard that finding a teacher is a little bit difficult. I did speak, Ms. Bogdan and I spoke yesterday with the World Languages person from the Ohio Department of Education. She said as soon as we have approval and we are ready to post, to share it with her, and she'll send it out to all of her people that are certified in American Sign Language. But again, you may have seen, I think it was not last summer, but the summer before, a student from Woodridge who was signing at, I forget now where they were. Taco Bell or Burger King, that's what I was trying to remember, actually made the news. And what we're finding is that customers and people in various industries are really like the idea that people are able to communicate with them. And one point, we did reach out to the local high schools that are offering it, and one of the teachers made what I thought was the best point, which is you can choose whether or not you're going to learn another language in terms of, one of our world languages. If you go to another country, you probably likely to find someone there that speaks English. If someone comes here from another country, they're probably going to find someone that speaks their language somewhere, but people who need sign language don't have a choice. And so helping our students become more literate, better citizens, and be able to provide that for people is something we're excited about. The intermediate Spanish, and I think I have the wrong page number on that again, I apologize. That is on page 86. Oh, that was the right page. Sorry. So we have offered intermediate Spanish previously. We stopped offering the CCP classes during COVID because the instructor felt that it was just too difficult for the students to get all the information they needed in that virtual setting without any face-to-face interaction. And so we're just bringing that back so that our students who took the elementary Spanish 1 and 2 can move forward with that, with the College Credit Plus. And then it's not listed in here, but it's linked. You are all aware that we are adding the Community Agriculture for Local Impact, which is a 6-district program. So we are still going to continue to offer our urban agriculture classes. Next year we will have only level 1 for the Career Tech program, but typically our Career Tech teachers have 4 periods a day that are devoted to Career Tech. Students may go to a supplemental class like English or math or something else that goes in with that Career Tech program. And so we will still have periods in the day that will leave Mr. Newland and Mr. McIntosh able to teach the urban agriculture class to our students who really want the experience but don't want to be part of the Career Tech program. So,
Actually, excuse me, Julie, just for a point of clarification.
sure.
Community agriculture is on the highlights list. It's the intermediate Spanish that isn't. I think, according to what I see. I can't see without my glasses, but.
Oh, okay.
I think you said it in reverse, that, yeah, it's on there.
Okay, all right, thank you. In terms of other changes, we updated some of our video introductions. I mentioned earlier, our public arts courses are going to be arts only now instead of the arts and welding together. AP fees go up every year by $1. So the last 2 or maybe 3 years, Mrs. Stoyko can help me, we have been able to use our Title IV funds to pay for our student, or our ESSER funds, to pay for students to take the AP exam, which has been really helpful for them, obviously.
Kent and Akron both, I know a lot of our kids go to Kent and Akron for four-year college. Do they still honor AP credits? Because I know that's becoming a thing.
Sure.
Because a lot of universities don't honor AP as credits.
So actually, AP tends to be honored more often than CCP courses.
Okay.
Because AP is nationally, it's because it comes through that national board.
Yeah.
And so, I just know from my own experience, my daughter applied to NYU, and when we went, she had 53 CCP credits, and they wouldn't take any of them because they didn't trust that, we couldn't afford it anyway, so it didn't matter. But, didn't matter, you know, whatever. But AP is typically offered, and it's definitely honored in our state schools.
Okay.
One of the key things is, especially for maybe a private school, is sometimes they want a 4 or 5. Some schools will take a 3, some require 4, some require 5. So that's something else that we've been working on, trying to work with that as well. We updated our description for yearbook production, and we also made the courses available to more students. Previously, we were only letting upperclassmen, and we've opened that up. Our FCS courses, we changed the organization of them to make it a little more clear for students. And then you saw in there, it said like this course will be returning next year. And so what we're wanting to do, we were going to do it, and then COVID came along, is we want to offer some courses every other year. That reduces the number of preps for the teachers, and we also think it will help the students maybe be a little more purposeful about choosing what they want and knowing if they don't get the course they want this year, there are going to be multiple sections next year. Sometimes we're shutting students out because we're only able to offer one section because we have so many student requests for the various courses. Choral music. Oh, sorry, I skipped so the FCS, the textile and interior design, is now level 1 course, and then we're adding a level 2 course called textile design, construction, and maintenance. Basically, it's just more complex and a little more hands-on. They're both hands-on, but that one really goes a little deeper. In choral music, so the music department made a change where we are now having any student that comes in as a freshman is going into a freshman choir. They had tried like a this, that, and the other thing, but what they finally decided is that let's start everybody in the same place, and then we can, as they schedule for continuing years, they can go into the more specified. Some students aren't ready for a cappella yet, but they might be after a year and that sort of thing. Also, not all of our middle school students have choir. We had a big discussion about that the other day, and how can we help all of our students get what they need. Theater arts, we renamed some of our courses, some of our levels, and we tried to open it up to more students. Environmental biology, that was just a name change to environmental science. Some students weren't choosing it because maybe they didn't like biology, but it's actually, that's only a small part of it. Black experience is being renamed to Black history. What we learned from the teacher is that some students share they didn't take the class because they really felt that it was intended for students of color, and that wasn't the idea at all. And so we changed that to make it hopefully more understandable. And then we did remove fees last year, and then those will be shared later this spring with Mrs. Stoyko, and then of course for you for board approval. And then courses that we are not offering, FCS had a course called Career and College Readiness, and we just haven't had students sign up for that. We tried that in various ways, and it hasn't taken hold, so we just removed that. We had a directing course in the theater program, and as you probably saw, there was just a lot of renaming, and that's just going to be included as part of the others. The Stitches and STEAM course we put into place for 2019-2020. The teacher that came up with the idea is no longer here, and students have not been choosing the course, and so we just removed that as an option because we have so many other options, and we're adding these other 2. And then we removed 2 of our adaptive courses for students with the more significant needs, just as we're trying to be more inclusive and include all students together in other courses. And then French 1, we're removing for next year as we are phasing out French and then phasing in American Sign Language. I think that's it, unless you have questions.
Just a comment, I'm so glad that we are adding American Sign Language. Something I have all these things I'd love to come back and learn that weren't available, and I just think that's a really good thing.
So maybe I'd go and, learn how to do it.
Well, I wish we let seniors come in.
At a certain age, Ms. White, you can audit courses at universities for free.
Well, this is maybe. And the second thing, if we ever get Shakespeare back, which I doubt.
You're the girl.
I know they got rid of it when Mr. Melvin retired, and I thought, oh boy. And then they're just, we got rid of it. So, I never got to teach it, but I would love to.
You could
I took that class here.
Did you? I know, I did too, but I mean, I never got to teach it.
You
And
could volunteer. You could be a board member and volunteer your time
Yeah,
to
there
teach
we
it.
go.
That's legal.
I could,
They
yeah, I
just
could.
talked about that at the conference we were
Ah,
at here.
wow.
Can you sub?
Yeah.
We're a little short.
They were talking about what if a board member has a CDL
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like,
Oh, yeah.
and they're
I was
like,
just
they
gonna
can
say,
volunteer.
that's
They're like, but you have to call your insurance and see if the insurance will let them.
Yeah.
Boy. Can you see Mrs. White behind the wheel? I don't know.
I would love to see that.
She's, one thing I know about Ms. White is she is not working those hours,
That's true.
Not that early,
She's gonna
no.
have to
especially not this
No,
early.
This is
not in the
true.
morning. 1 o'clock at night, I'm good, but not 8 a.m. in the morning.
I just want to, I really like the Rise Up idea because I know that's something a lot of districts are talking about is how to get those industry credentials outside of like having to be in a career tech program because those are those pathways to graduation. So I'm really excited to see us doing that here. So thank you for that. And then on the financial literacy, when you said that, it's on the board, it's on the agenda for the State Board of Education this coming, they're meeting Monday and Tuesday. So they're talking about licensure for that. It's in the licensure and professional supports committee, so then it'll go to full state board in March. So they're working
Oh,
on that.
that's good to
On,
hear.
yeah.
We've been working on it all year, and when I emailed them and said, any idea what it would take for a math teacher to teach this? No, we don't know that.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
but it
they
has to
have,
be in place next fall.
they have a proposal on their, and like under their
Okay.
agendas that, that's going to committee next week, and then if their committee approves it, it'll go to full board in March.
Oh, good, that's good to hear.
So, that's coming. Cause I was like, I just looked at that. So when you had said that, I was like, I think I saw that they're working on that. I think they, yeah.
Okay, any
Does anyone have,
questions,
does anyone
comments?
need more time to review the course of studies? Yes, no?
I don't think
I
so.
don't.
Ms. Coco, do you need more time to review the course of studies? I'll do a Zoom pause.
I am good, thank you very much. I'm very excited
Would
about the
anybody be
additions.
opposed to voting to approve it tonight to allow them to move forward?
Let's do it.
Anyone like to make a motion to approve the high school program of studies?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the CFHS program of studies. Is that good?
Second, any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Ms. Bogdan?
You came just in time, we just
They
approved
just
it.
approved it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I did want to share also, so with our school links, we changed from Naviance to school links. And so one of the really cool features of school links is that students can do their scheduling online. And so the counselors have been working diligently with their secretarial support to get at all of the classes in there. And it ties in with the graduation pathway plans as well. And so we're really excited about it for students to be able to do it that way. And they can actually see like, oh, okay, you've already met, it will like be grayed out or something like that if they've already had a course that is, worth the same thing and that sort of thing. So we're really excited about that.
I'm sure the counselors are very excited.
Yeah, it was a lot of upfront work, but we
But
feel it's
yeah.
gonna be worth it in the end, because then it will also print reports to go into Dazzle and happy. So thank you very much, thank you for voting
Absolutely.
tonight, that
Thank
makes
you.
our school links work even easier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
While you're here, was there anything that specifically that you wanted to point out? Just because you're here, I didn't want to.
No, I apologize,
Okay.
I'm late. I've been
No, you're
No.
fine.
No, no.
interviewing for a
Alright.
position and
Yeah.
You're
I'm
fine.
checking my phone. As everybody knows, I'm not really great at checking my phone.
You're
so-
fine. I just didn't know if there's anything specific you wanted to say that I didn't want to give you an opportunity.
Thank you.
We're all set then.
Thank you.
Okay. On item E, Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda, Ms. Stoikoi.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, Ms. Stoikoi?
Yeah, just real quick, the appropriations, there were some reallocations to, some of our federal grants, and we received the final payment in February for the auxiliary schools from the state. So they kind of give us an estimate up until then, and then, with this last payment, we have the final numbers, so we were able to, kind of right-size that, that fund, and get them in line, cause this is the end of the biennium for them, so they're, on like a 2-year, so they can carry over funds in between the biennium, and then at the end, they can't carry over anything to next year, and that they'll start a new biennium set there. And so that's really it there, and then, donations, as always, more from Ben Curtis, and then a couple other with school supplies and a microwave.
When you say auxiliary schools, those are the non-publics that we.
Redeemer and IHL.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Those are the
just
two.
wanna make sure I
Yep.
understand. Any questions or comments?
We have, I should add, we have Chapel Hill is here too, but they
Thank you
opt,
very
in the last budget, they could opt to get their money directly, and they opted to do that, so it doesn't flow through us. IHM and Redeemer still flow through us.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye. Item F, Treasurer CFO's business, your comments.
Yes, I received notification today, late last night, that the, audit was made public, and released, so everything is, good there. I believe we will be having our conference. I'm waiting for him to get back to me with like a link
Okay.
on a calendar invite on the 14th, at noon. So once I get that, I will send that out to you guys.
Will that just be with the state audit people?
It'll be with Julian and group.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it'll be
And
with
that's a
people.
virtual, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be virtual. So, once he sends me back the information on that, I will get that out to you guys. And almost at the end of this year and start it all over again. Although I do really appreciate Julian and Group. They do a good job. And they spend little time. Listen, they spend little time in my office. And so they're there like 2 days and then they're gone. As opposed to, I like the people from the state, but they'll be there for months. So, it makes it easier. And SCView actually was very helpful this year because they were just able to get on. I was able to grant them access and they were able to get on and find everything that they needed without us having to pull checks for them and take the time to do that or pull employee files and or scan them to them. That can be time consuming. I was able to just kind of give them access to do the search themselves and see what they needed. So that certainly made it go a lot quicker too. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Item G, Superintendent CO's business consent agenda. Dr. Salko.
Thank you. I'd like to make a recommendation that the board approve the items as listed in the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to maybe mention the marching band field trip. I know that there's been some discussion and debate over the years about field trips, but I am a proponent for our children having these opportunities and to travel and to see places outside of our area here. In this instance, the band, I met with Mr. Harris and we had a discussion about the expectations for this trip, and they would like to leave on November 16th, which is right after school. They will miss 1 day of school, so it'd be November 16th through the 19th. Weather looks, at that point, makes me a little more comfortable than the heart of winter. But it is for a pre-Thanksgiving Day parade in Chicago, and he's assured me of the details and also that students, they are looking to fundraise in a number of different ways and actually even getting some donors and some scholarship type ideas out there that students will all have an opportunity to attend. So I feel comfortable in the conversation we had and that he knows the expectations for the trip. So I recommend that we approve this for them. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the board? Please call the roll.
Ms. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Item H, Superintendent CEO's business. Your comments, Dr. Salko.
Thank you. So as you see on the agenda, we had our soups troops that we're going to present today, but I got a couple that are ill and unable to make it this evening, and Morgan did show up, and of all of my kids, she's probably the most bashful, and she knows it, so we've talked about it, and when I told her she would be the only one here this evening, I saw her eyes get really big, and so I told her she's off the hook. I won't do that to her and have her present, but she did get an opportunity to meet a few of you, which is good, and we will have them back. I have some, they're very excited, they took notes, we had a Google Doc, and topics that they wanted to discuss with you, and so illness is out there, so apologize for that. Also, we have a dress code, one last meeting, February 16th, that's next Thursday at 6 o'clock here. What I'm hoping to accomplish, I've sent out, actually Christine sent out a lot of information on that today relative to policies and the proposed handbook and policies based on the feedback that we received from staff, students, and parents, and we'll have a recommendation for you in the next couple, I don't know, weeks or month from now, so we can get that, put an end to that. And lastly, I just want to take a moment to talk to the board a little bit about what we've been experiencing and those who are listening at home and for parents regarding safety and making some good choices and versus bad. So in my office, we've been hearing a lot about threats being made. I know you as parents see it. I inform you of these major incidences that happen. We have children who continue to make threats, whether they're frustrated, sad, angry, whatever it may be, thinking it's funny. Superintendent does not find it funny, nor do parents, nor do our police. So I would strongly encourage our students to stop doing it and to have our parents to please support our efforts in getting our students to make better choices. We also are having issues relative to drugs and vaping, seeing a lot of that. So we're going to be addressing all of those things. I've asked Christine, since she's now returned, to assist me in putting together a letter for parents emphasizing those points and the support that we need, and that we're not going to tolerate these behaviors, nor are the police, and we're going to be hopefully, as if you approve the policies this evening about the wands, so we would be introducing that concept to parents, and our vape detectors once those go in. So we just want to put together a kind of a one-stop to address all of our needs and also the concerns that parents have and questions that they've had relative to safety. So we'd like to emphasize some of the things we have done to address safety and to make things a little more secure, and the things that are coming in the near future and into next year. So, and before I send that out, I certainly will run it by all of you just so you can see and make sure we're all on the same page and in support of my message. But it's time that we have that reminder again. So, and that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to item I, board business, number 1, policy adoption. It's recommended the Board of Education approve and adopt the following policies which were reviewed at the January 25th, 2023 Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I think it's a good step for the board to take to support efforts to make our buildings hopefully a better learning environment for our students. I think I've heard from parents about kids not wanting to use the restrooms because the restrooms are full of vape smoke, or just because they're places where bad behavior are occurring. So hopefully this is just one more step in helping make that a more positive environment for our students. Please call the roll.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Number 2, resolution authorizing required 3rd grade assessments in paper format. It's recommended the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the required 3rd grade reading assessments be done in paper format.
So moved.
Second.
Who was the second? Okay, thank you. Dr. Selko, did you want to give a little
Sure.
background on this?
My apologies, this was a late addition. Thought we'd squeak it in there. It's essentially just a resolution just saying that students in third grade will take the test on paper as opposed to online. I think the thought is that children do better at that age particularly with paper and pencil and, the act of just taking that test on paper, I think we've had better success. And so we're just asking that it's a requirement that we pass this resolution.
And this is the third grade reading acceleration assessment. Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3 is recognition of a support organization. It's recommended that the Board of Education formally recognize the following organization: Cuyahoga Falls City Schools Visual Art Boosters.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please.
I was just gonna say, I would like to thank them for their efforts. I mean, Ms. Schulman is pretty passionate about this, and I just appreciate her doing this. They did a great job on the bylaws and put some real time and effort into this, so thank you to them, and thank you for the board if you support this.
Absolutely. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 4 is future agenda items. Any future agenda items?
Yeah, I have a couple that when I was reading the notes, I did warn Mr. Hutch about this. But I was really interested in some of the things that are happening in our district. I don't know that they'll compare to that wonderful choir that we had at the beginning of this, but there's some interesting things. I would like to see a presentation or just information sometime on chat GPT. I just think that sounds so interesting, and I really thought about it, and I thought, wow, that is so neat, because it writes full essays on topics, it writes songs, poems, articles, but we'll have to look and see make sure kids aren't plagiarizing, of course. But I just thought that was really, really interesting, because I did bring up Grammarly that my daughter showed me, and I'm going, oh my gosh, that's what I would do. It's almost like me grading. And so I just was curious about that program. The other thing, and thank you for giving this in the note, because these are really neat things that the teachers and students are doing. Mr. Winkler, his programming skills with 4th and 5th graders using coding sites. Well, I really don't know what coding is, so I'm not sure. But Crunchzilla and Scratch, and that's just something, Global Shark Tracker. Yeah, I mean, it just sounds really neat, and I'd like to see something on that. And then I think I have one other thing. Mr. Orris at Roberts is doing a Sphero, I think that's Sphero. Yeah, Roberts lesson for math, and I'm not a math person, but I just found this fascinating. And he's also doing this with, at BOLIC for family consumer science and things like, I just think those are good things that we're doing, and we need to bring, and tell people and our public about. And so, to me, that was real. I do read these things, and usually I'm not a big tech person, but I just found those 3 things to be really interesting. Would like a presentation, or have the kids maybe, I don't know, something that we can get out to our community, because they're neat. That's really awesome.
So I think,
Did you get all that?
no, I got it.
Sorry.
Pull it together as a presentation, be like a presentation on how we're integrating technology into our
Exactly.
schools, and maybe even a little bit of helping us understand about these new ViewSonic boards, because I know what they are, and I can say that we switched to these ViewSonic boards, but I don't really know what they are. So maybe a little bit on how we're integrating technology. And then, because I warned you, I was going to ask.
Can we have 3 hours? Is that?
And you know what I'm going to say to tie into this, a Makerspace update, which you've been giving us some on, but
Yeah.
and I know we're chugging away at that, I know, but I think you've been doing some work, so I don't know.
Yeah, we can look up a presentation. I don't want to be too long, but we can try to give you a snap, like a shock and awe of what we do.
Yeah.
I'll have Dr. Selico work with you on that, and then
I
she
like
can
the
follow
shark.
up with me on when would be a good time to work that in to the board.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
I just, to me, it's fascinating, and I like to see what the kids and teachers are actually doing.
Thanks for reading the notes and taking an interest.
And we don't make Mr. Hutch present that much, so.
Yeah,
It's
true.
his turn.
So at our next meeting, Ms. Stoiko is gonna give us the ESSER update. So, we'll have our usual, presentation, recognitions, and then we have the ESSER update. Ms. Stoiko and I are meeting on Friday to have a conversation about, the deep dive into understanding the construction budget as we're kind of in the midst of the bidding season. Yes, thank you for the, I've been not finding words today. So she and I are meeting on Friday to talk about that. So that's upcoming, probably early-ish March is when it would come. But we're gonna talk about that on Friday and get together on that. So that's upcoming. Finance committee, I think, is meeting on Tuesday. Everything's meeting Tuesday. So finance committee is meeting Tuesday, and I know we'd asked them to talk a little bit about the idea of like, the budgeting conversation, so we're gonna continue that after we hear back from finance committee. DLT met, and we'll hear more from Ms. White and her report on that. But what we've been doing this year is that after DLT meets, is getting a board level presentation on the topic. So that was really around, MAP, Acadians, and I think it's a good time to talk about, some of our phonics work, because phonics is a hot topic right now statewide and in the legislature. So I think it'd be, and parents are talking about phonics because there's that hot podcast that's out that everyone's listening to about reading.
Science of reading.
Is that what it's called? I don't know. I listen
Lot
to
of
it,
debate about
but
it.
it's a big hot topic. And I know it's a hot topic in Hudson because they're teaching the bad way. We're teaching the good way in Cuyahoga Falls, for the record, to read. So sometime in March, maybe the first meeting in March, we get that high level update.
We do have that planned. Mr. Gomez, I think
Okay.
we have a literacy update for March 8th. Are we still good for
Yeah,
that? We can
and tie it in
the
just
files.
with, and also like, because I think at deal, I don't want to step on Ms. White's update toes too much, but you did map, it was district wide, correct?
Yeah.
And so the question, I think like, and I think it was the question you were posing is basically, we got the report card that reported on last year's, like, are our students improving, based on the last time as a board we took a look at these scores. And at the end of the year, just to put this on our radar, I would love to hear an update on how our 3-5 science program did. Because I know that was a new curriculum that we implemented, but I'd love to get a year in before we hear about it, get a full cycle through. And in March, we're gonna start the strategic plan. I know there's a lot, but there's a lot of good things going on that I think we have an obligation to take time to highlight at our meetings. And we have the Soups Troops, if they can come back on the 22nd, we can pop them in. And then we did say at some point we were gonna ask Mary Jane Stankina to come in. Maybe we can just have a personal conversation with her when we see her on the 2nd. That would be the best way to do it, is just chat with her then and then work from there.
On the 2nd? What did you say about that? When to chat with her?
On the 2nd at the country club when we do when we have
care.
the 6th
Oh,
district
okay.
celebration.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, there's lots of things on the horizon. And then I wanted to ask Dr. Selgo if, in your comments at our next board meeting, since it'll still be in February, if you would, in your comments, highlight some of the things that our district is doing for Black History Month
Yes.
at our
Glad to.
next meeting.
Yep.
I think that would be helpful. So, lots of things in the future, but it's the future, it's not tonight. Okay. Committee reports. Ms. White, you are up for core team.
Yeah, the construction core team met, and we added a new team member to TDA. The bidding docs are going out. As we talk, they are supposed to be due at the end of March, the bids at the end of this month, and then end of March we'll get which ones they think are the correct, which ones that we need to approve or whatever. And so, again, the site RAM aggregate piers, they're getting that out to the lowest bidder, most cost-effective, and they're collaborating with Hammond in line with the expected dollars that we thought of. So everything's on schedule. They're maintaining their pace. The sanitary work, the west side is complete, except next to Bolick. They're kind of waiting on that. The east side, they are starting work on the storm structures on the south end of the parking lot. Let's see. They're going to do the water line, the west side, and stop at the hydrant there at the tap line on 13th instead of Portage Trail, because those things are in such bad shape, it would be hard to tap into them altogether. So, again, they will reach out to the neighbors to let them know when the road will be shut down, and they'll have to kind of use Lincoln and Washington there. Dominion East Ohio easement was sent over, so they're working on that as well, and that should get to us soon for that approval. They're looking for May 26th for the work to be done and getting materials and everything going. So it doesn't look like they're actually doing a lot, but they are. The design, the permit side, and they're looking at the stadium now and trying to get that going. I know KJ talked to the Browns, but it doesn't look too good for us. Usually they do lower income schools and districts, and usually more towards Cleveland. So again, OFCC's on track, no report there. And Christine, we heard would be back in 2 weeks, and here she is. Hope you're doing well. And again, public relations, she'll take that back in hand, I know. And so that's pretty much the construction court.
Okay. Thank you.
Did I miss anything? I don't think I did.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Flags and Activity Council, you'll probably be meeting soon. Do you know when your next?
I do not know.
Probably should reach out, because I think it'll be soon for the seasons coming to
They're
an end.
wrapping up.
Yes. Okay.
Had a couple senior nights.
Board policy, we are meeting tomorrow at noon. Correct? Yes. Business Alliance meets Tuesday, Finance meets Tuesday, Foundation meets Tuesday. Legislative Liaison, Mr. Harris?
Yes, I will provide a brief recap of the state of the state that Governor DeWine gave. Mr. Gomez and I wrote this down so I don't trail off. Mr. Gomez and I attended the State of the State at the invitation of our district state representative, Casey Weinstein. I want to thank the representative for having us down to experience the inner workings of our state government. I'll briefly provide an overview of the governor's proposed budget priorities as they mostly relate to education. Mr. Gomez, please chime in if I happen to miss or overlook anything. The governor proposed an overhaul of the state public school funding formula, the Cupp-Patterson plan. The plan has seen 2 years of funding from the legislature so far, but was designed as a 6-year phase-in, complete with studies on the real cost of educating children and specific aims for economically disadvantaged and special education students. He also pushed for expansions to the EdChoice private school voucher plan, an increase in funding of $500 to $1,000 per pupil for all Ohio charter schools. The governor recommitted the state government to focus on literacy. He mentioned that 40% of Ohio's third graders aren't reading on grade level. He's directed the Ohio Department of Education to create a plan and provide funding to pay for phonics instruction for all students and professional development in phonics for teachers. The governor also touted the success of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, saying that 366,000 students have received a book every month, and Ohio has sent out roughly 10 million books to kids statewide. As it relates to school safety, the governor proposed a budget that provides enough funding for every Ohio school to have a resource officer in the building.
Can I step in there? So it's actually not enough funding for every
Okay.
school district. So the devil's in the details. So his
All
budget director got quizzed on this yesterday when they started hearings. So they're actually not funding every district to give you money for a school resource officer. They're funding it based on the formula. So
Gotcha.
it's based on your formula. So they're not really giving you money for a school resource officer. They're saying they're gonna put it in the formula.
Right.
And remember, we're only gonna, if they pass the budget, we're only 2/3 of the way in the full
Right.
formula. and then it's wherever you fall in the quintiles of the formula, and then that's how much of the formula you get. So,
Right. Like you
devil's
said,
in the detail.
detail.
It was a really nice idea.
Yeah,
and we were
right?
all very
Yeah.
supportive of it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when she got put, Kim Murniaks, who
Mhm.
is the OBM director, got directly asked. She was like, "Well, it's actually really not. It's going to be
Really had to break it down.
ratioed based on income of the district."
Right.
So,
Which for us will probably not result in anything because we're on the guarantee.
Yeah.
So
Right, okay.
it'll just take away from what we're, the guarantee, and they'll say, this part of your guarantee is now this
Right.
funding for school resource officers.
yeah, nice words, but the action
Yeah.
isn't. It's the fall through the action is really not there.
Put a nice bow on top
Yeah.
of it, yeah. All right, lastly, shifting to higher education, Governor DeWine asked for budget increases for need-based financial aid for students who attend community colleges and regional campuses of four-year universities. He also asked for a renewable $5,000 scholarship for the top 5% of graduating high school seniors if they attend a public college or university in Ohio. And those were kind of more of the state aimed at the education portion. So, did I miss anything? Anything else, Mr. Gomez?
No.
All right, that's all I have.
Just a
Yeah.
couple on that. So, just because I think this is a very important part to the budget, we've talked about this before, but there's, all the different factors of the funding, and the funding formula itself, as intended, fully funded, is an excellent, an excellent model. What's happening is that, in this proposal from the governor, we're still using 17-18 school year salaries, benefits, and all that stuff. But districts are being looked at for their valuation and the income of their residents based on the most immediate 3 years, whatever works best for you, either the most immediate year or an average of the three. And so as we keep using those newer figures, and what that base cost is getting funded on stays stagnant at over 5 years ago is what it will be, cost of living, for, what people were, it just makes that gap between what the state pays and what is put onto the local taxpayer bigger and bigger and bigger. And you'll see many schools start to not be on the formula at all. And that was the problem with the old way, was that no one was actually they were either on a guarantee or they were on like a cap. As they have it, and with the 6-year phase-in, it's intended to work the way it's supposed to work, and the funding per student. But if we keep tinkering with using older figures for some of the factors and then newer ones for things that are potentially cause us to carry more of the burden, we're just going to shift further away from the state giving us what the formula is actually intended to give us, just based on those factors. So that's really important if you're talking to your legislators and anything. That's a really big key, is to get at least those numbers into a real-time, recent figures of what it costs to actually employ a teacher, employ a guidance counselor, employ a superintendent and treasurer, and real data instead of data that is super old.
And they didn't include the disadvantaged cost study because they said it would cost too much money. So OEPI, Ohio Education Policy Institute, just did another one to refresh their numbers, and so they're advocating for that disadvantaged student cost study to be included again. And they also did, important to our district, an English language learner cost study. That would only cost the state $60 to $70 million, which in the scheme of a $70 billion budget is nothing. So that's another thing for us to advocate for, is to them to fully fund that English language learner budget, because those are definitely funds that districts like ours could benefit from. And that's nothing. It's less than 1% of the state budget. So I know our OSBA people are doing what they can, but there's a lot of education bills that they threw down all at once. But I think part of that is strategy to try to keep people distracted, because you're running from this hearing room to this hearing room. They're hearing this bill, they're hearing this bill, they're hearing this bill. and you have to choose what you're advocating on because they're hearing them all at the same time. They had hearings on, was it Senate Bill 14 about the education licensure, vets in classrooms, but it's more than that because it's also the, basically saying that if you have 60 credit hours, you can teach. It's just craziness.
Right.
That it is.
Yeah.
You have anything more, Mr. Hill?
Nope, that's all. Thank you.
Ms. White, Student Achievement Liaison.
Yes, well, every so often I get notes from, as being the SA liaison, and I just wanted to get this out to our community. It's Ohio ACE After-School Savings Accounts. What is the After-School Child Enrichment, or ACE, program? Well, for qualifying families, you can get a $500 credit that can be used to pay for a variety of educational and enrichment activities that support learning for students impacted by COVID. So I just thought that was interesting and maybe helpful to some of our families out there. And we did meet, and we did a lot more math than anything, but we talked about the map, and we shared data, the achievement growth, and the proficiency on the tests. And so I was at Robert's table in the 7th grade there, and I had to add up all these numbers and percents, which I did. And so they'll take those back to their buildings, and then the buildings will follow through on the form of, you know, what students, what, if they need help, what kind of interventions might help them. The high school, the teams are spending, I think, one time a quarter on academic growth team next year. And they talked a little bit about universal design and differentiated instruction and the mindset approach to instruction. So that was pretty much where we got. And I don't think I left anything, did I? Anything out? Okay, so that's, yeah.
Thank you. Comments? First up is Ms. Coco, and she said she might try to share some comments, so we'll Zoom pause.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I just wanted to first say thank you to the Lincoln students for coming in and performing tonight. I'm sad that I wasn't there in person, but on the upside, I was able to tear up and cry as much as I wanted because no one could see me. So just thank you to them. That was awesome. And congratulations to the high school students with their OMEA scores as well. Since our last meeting, I was able to go to the one-act play at the high school, and just the students did such an awesome job, and it was really enjoyable. I took my 5th grader with me, and she had the best time, and she is very much looking forward to getting into theater as she gets older in our district. So I'm sad that I'm going to miss some of the upcoming events this weekend at our different schools. I know there's dances and bingo happening, but hopefully I am out of my isolation and able to attend some of the events happening next week, along with the all-city performance on the 15th for the band. Correct? Is that what it is? The all-city band performance? Percussion?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, other than that, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in person as soon as I can.
Thank you, Ms. Coco. Okay. I am up next. I was also able to attend the one-act plays. They're one of my favorite performances of the year. They're just wonderful. I also represented our school district at Congresswoman Sykes' swearing, and she spoke a lot about the importance of public education. So it's good to have her there. It's the first time in 50 years that our entire county is represented by one person. So there's a lot of benefits of that and that localness. And actually, her constituent relations manager is actually the parent of a student at Bullock. So we have good connections there as well. So that's very helpful to us. I attended a Northeast regional meeting at Shaker Heights to get some updates from OSBA, legislative updates. It's where they shared about these different cost studies, which was really interesting. And then they asked us to take these and share them with our board. Just a little bit of information about, you know, that we're not part of the National School Boards Association anymore, part of this new consortium. So they asked us to share these and pass them out. Ms. Coco, I'll get yours in your packet so you can have it. So just a little information about that. I was also at the State of the State with Mr. Harris, and State Rep Weinstein took some time to talk with us, and he is working on a bill to eliminate in the state of Ohio. We know that free and reduced lunches is a federal program governed by the USDA, but he's working on a bill to take state funds to eliminate the idea of reduced lunches in the state of Ohio. And we know that's something that we have a passion for here in the state of Ohio. So I'm going to try to connect Chef Bill with his legislative aide, get some of that data to support his bill as well. And then he made a point of stopping us in the tunnel, so we got to see each state representative has one piece of art from a high school student from their district, and the piece of art from now his district is from Cuyahoga Falls High School's own Anna Leone. So we got to stop and see her piece of art on the way to the State of the State. So that was really cool to have a piece of Cuyahoga Falls there at the State House as well. We tried to, but the glare was really bad and it was terrible. We tried really.
Mr. Gomez is in my photo and I'm in his photo.
Yeah, we tried really hard to get a good picture, but the way the light was shining was really bad. And then his legislative aide was like, "We are running late. You need to move." And so we were like, "Okay." Yeah, we tried. We knew. You trained us well. And then I was able to stop by. Ms. Coco was there as well, and Ms. Schaefer will probably mention it. The Richardson Chili Cook-Off. I was lobbied by no less than 3 parents to vote for their chili to win. It was very competitive. And we had our first regional executive committee for OSBA for the Northeast region. And in May, they're having somebody from the Ohio Department of Public Safety come in, because I guess there's additional grants that you can get from ODPS. So I'm interested to hear about that and bring back some information. And then Ms. Schaefer and I attended the OSBA 201 regional training on Saturday up in Independence. There's a lot of really good information there. It's always good to learn from other people, and then you always leave feeling very fortunate for the school district we have after you hear about what people are dealing with in other school districts. You kind of feel like whatever issues we're dealing with pale in comparison after you hear what some of these people are talking about. I'm like, we've got our issues, but we are not dealing with some of that stuff. So, and then tomorrow morning I get to go speak with the voice group at Roberts. They want to hear an update on their idea about the walking path at the new building. So I'm excited to tell them about the idea of putting in the little measurements. I'm sure they'll be excited to hear about that. Okay. Mr. Harris, you're up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks again to our Lincoln music students for that wonderful performance, and another congratulations to our OMEA solo and ensemble contest participants. Some of you know I have a kid coming at the end of March, so I'm going to take I wrote in my notes here a little bit of a dad joke. So much talent here in our district. You love to see it, or hear it in this instance. No? Okay. All right. I'll continue working on it. I'll continue working on my dad jokes. A shout out to the students and faculty, cast, and crew who put on incredible performances for the One Act Play Festival this year. My wife and I always enjoy attending that. Couldn't stay the entire time, but what we saw, we very much enjoyed. My thanks again to Representative Weinstein for the invitation to attend this year's State of the State address. Not only did we get great seats in the gallery, we were able to chat about our district, meet the new Speaker of the House, and get a few seconds with the Governor himself. Once again, I thank Mr. Weinstein for that opportunity. Another shout out, this time to Principal Brown for having Ms. Schaefer, Dr. Selico, and I by Preston Elementary School for a quick visit yesterday. It was great chatting with students and some of the staff and seeing all the wonderful things happening throughout Preston Elementary School. So thanks again to the folks over there. And then lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, it is Black History Month. February is Black History Month. We recognize the heroes, innovators, and leaders and scholars who have contributed to our American history. They've knocked down barriers, paving pathways for little black children like myself to be sitting up here, a school board member elected by my community. It's a testament to the story of America, the perseverance, the hope, the continued progress. I want to thank school administrators, Dr. Selico and Dr. Selico, for providing us with a brief update on what our staff and students are doing across the district to honor Black History Month. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about that at the next meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Schaefer.
Okay, I have a lot of the same things to say. One act play, so much fun. There are so many talented kids that were just willing to get up there and just sometimes be silly, but it was really neat to watch. I went to the senior night for girls and boys basketball, dance team, and cheerleading on this past Friday. We played Talmadge. They had a halftime an alumni presentation as well. Wow, these kids can play. It was specifically the girls basketball team, super physical, on the ground, trying to get the ball. It was very exciting. The scoreboard didn't reflect the heart that was out there that night, but wow, it was really great. And one of the things I noticed so the dance team comes out at halftime and does their thing, and the cheerleaders all lined up so they could just be front row to watch them, and they all cheered them on. It's like, I love that. You know, students supporting students. I love that. This past Saturday, as Mr. Gomez said, we attended that board member 201, a deeper dive. I actually thought that when I was attending that maybe some of it was going to be things that maybe I had done before. It was not. It was a lot of information. I was very glad to go because there was just so much good information there and some good ideas. The chili cook-off and bingo. While I did not get to play bingo, I did get to taste the chilies, and I feel like they should have labeled those chilies a little bit better because some of them were a little bit spicier than I was expecting. It was a false sense of security because some of them were labeled spicy. One of them was not labeled spicy. Mr. Gomez was gracious enough to let me know, like, hey, you may not want to try that one. I said, thank you very much, and I tried its sister next door to it, and that was also very spicy for me.
The homemade sour cream.
There was a homemade sour cream.
I didn't know you could make sour cream.
Yeah, delicious, but I wish I would have had a glass of milk, maybe. And we ran out of the Scoops Fritos. The only ones that were left were the jalapeno flavored Scoops, which did not serve my purpose. Looking forward, I believe this weekend is wrestling, the Doug Dix wrestling tournament that I plan on attending. And I know that there's a Valentine's Day dance at Silver Lake on Friday.
And glow dance at DeWitt.
Glow dance at DeWitt. Friday?
Bingo at Lincoln Friday. And an art show for the high school at Upfront Art Space Friday.
Whew, busy night. Busy night. I also got to do a tour with Mr. Harris at Preston. Well, I have two students that went through Preston, so I am familiar with the building, but it was neat to get the tour because things are always changing, classrooms moving, and how they're using the space, so that was really interesting for me. And then today I got to tour Lincoln with Dr. Selico and Mrs. Early. And I have never been through that entire building before. I've been in its sister building, Court Cultural Center, and it's neat to see how they're different and the same at the same time. And it is a large building. I like going to the buildings because, one, you can see what the students are doing, where they're doing it. So I can see, we got to go into our room, got to see what they're working on, the things that were hanging on the wall, the things that they're working on, and it helps you really know the community and I kind of feel where they're at. So I do really enjoy that.
And sit in my nephew's seat.
I
at his
did.
desk.
They had I thought they had on the chair seats. They had this tips or whatever they're called on the legs, and I thought it was an anti-tipping, so you can't tip your chair back. And Mrs. Early was like, no, that is not what that is for. And she's like, go ahead and sit in the chair. I'm like, those are tiny. I'm not going to sit in the chair. But I did sit in it, and it gives there's like a little bit of a give to it. So if you have a student that maybe needs a little bit of movement, you're able to get a little bit of movement in it. Yeah.
That's my nephew.
They all had
Guilty
those,
as
Mr. Gomez. I might need one for myself to replace the fidget seats. Not that I sit in those, but yeah. A lot going on in the district.
Thank you. Ms. White?
Yes, I would like to also thank the Lincoln students. What a wonderful thing, they wrote their own song. That's just
Amazing.
amazing. And I do have an article that I'd like to read. I know if anybody wants to leave now, you can. I won't feel bad, trust me, Ms. Coco. You might, But anyway, I found this article, and of course, those that, if you know me, you know how proliferant I am with the cell phone. This is take away their cell phones, and I just thought it was really interesting. Yeah, as we know, educators returned to school in the fall of 2021 to find that our classrooms and students had changed. Most of us understood that what the data have since clearly borne out, despite often heroic efforts by teachers to deliver remote instruction, the pandemic had caused a massive setback in learning and academic progress. Now we are back on the road to regular life, and as the days passed, though, a troubling reality emerged. Even students who had escaped the worst of the pandemic were out of practice when it came to the expectations, courtesies, and give and take of everyday life. Perhaps as a result of this, their social skills had declined. What has happened to our students isn't just the impact of a protracted, once-in-a-generation adverse event, but the combined effects of several large-scale ground-shifting trends that predate the pandemic and have reshaped the fabric of young people's lives. As we look forward, their combined effects should cause us to think beyond short-term recovery and to reconsider how we design schools and schooling. Research by Twinge and others found that teenagers' media use roughly doubled between 2006 and 2016 across gender, race, and class. In competition against the smartphone, the book, the idea of reading, lost significant ground. By 2016, just 16% of 12th grade students read a book or magazine daily. As recently as 1995, 41% did. Meanwhile, social media was on the rise. By 2016, about 3/4 of teenagers reported using social media almost every day. Those trends have only accelerated. We now know that 84% of American teenagers own a smartphone. As smartphones become common, they transform peer relationships, family relationships, and the texture of daily life for everyone. It's harder to strike up a casual conversation in the cafeteria or after class when everyone is staring down at a phone, for example. Sorry, I know. But anyway, it's harder to have a deep conversation when each party is interrupted randomly by buzzing, vibrating notifications. The average 12th grader in 2016 went out with friends less often than the average 8th grader 10 years before. American teenagers were also less likely to date, drive a car, or have a job. The roller rink, the basketball court, the town pool, and I like this one, the local necking spot. I don't know where that is. I always heard it was upstairs where the, no. But anyway, they've all been replaced by virtual spaces accessed through apps and the web. These virtual meetups are universally associated with less happiness for young people. Those who spend an above average amount of time with their friends in person are 20% less likely to say they're unhappy than those who hang out for a below average amount of time. And that was long before TikTok and the latest round of social media platforms carefully designed to ensure obsession and the lingering anxiety that you really ought to be checking your phone before the optimization of apps like Snapchat, with posts designed to disappear as soon as they are seen and therefore undiscoverable to an adult coming in a young person's room to see what is amiss. Then in March 2020, virtually everything that might have competed with smartphones suddenly disappeared. A recent Common Sense Media study found that children's daily entertainment usage of screens grew by 17% between 19 and 21, more than it had grown during the 4 years prior. Overall, daily entertainment screen use in 2021 increased to 5.5 hours among tweens ages 8 to 12, and to more than 8.5 hours among teens ages 13 to 18 on average. At the levels of use that are now common, smartphones are catastrophic to the well-being of young people. The more teenagers spend looking at screens, the more likely they are to report symptoms of depression. It's not an exaggeration to describe this generation as being on the brink of the worst mental health crisis in decades. In addition, all of that time on screens, even without social media, degrades attention and concentration skills, making it harder to focus fully on any task and to maintain that focus. This is not a small thing. Attention is central to every learning task, and the quality of attention paid by learners shapes the outcome of learning endeavors. The more rigorous the task, the more it requires what experts call selective or directive attention. To learn well, you must be able to maintain self-discipline about where you direct your attention. The problem with cell phones is that young people using them switch tasks every few seconds. Better put, young people practice switching tasks every few seconds, so they become more accustomed to states of half attention, where they are ever more expectant of a new stimulus every few seconds. When students encounter a sentence or an idea that requires slow, focused analysis, their minds are already glancing around for something new and more entertaining. Young people are especially susceptible. The region of the brain that exerts impulse control and self-discipline, the prefrontal cortex, isn't fully developed until the age of 25. In addition, the brain rewires itself constantly based on how it functions. This idea is known as neuroplasticity. The more time young people spend in constant half-attentive task switching, the harder it becomes for them to maintain the capacity for staying periods of intense concentration. A brain habituated to being bombarded by constant stimuli rewires accordingly, losing impulse control. If you want kids to pay attention, they need to practice paying attention. The first step in responding to the dual crisis of learning and well-being is to set and enforce cell phone restrictions. An institution with the dual purpose of fostering students' learning and well-being cannot ignore an intruder that actively erodes a young mind's ability to focus and sustain attention, and also magnifies anxiety, loneliness, and depression. Cell phones must be turned off and put away when students walk through school doors, period. But cell phone restrictions are only part of the equation. Schools themselves will also require rewiring. One thing we can do, or the single most important space when it comes to shaping students' sense of connectedness, is the school. If classroom practices do little to instill a sense of belonging, students will feel a weak connection to the primary purpose of school. But just as important, building classrooms to maximize belonging cannot come at the expense of academic achievement. Students' lack of progress in science, math, and reading, their reduced knowledge of history, their lessened exposure to the arts will have lifelong costs. There's one teacher who used a little bit of this in his classroom, where he put a team of kids so that they could actually get feedback. And they call this the technique habits of attention. It's small but critical aspect of how classrooms can maximize belonging and achievement. Students also validated each other in other ways throughout the lesson. So often when a student speaks in class, no one other than the teacher responds or communicates that the statement was important. But when a peer's comment begins, "I agree with," it says implicitly that my classmate just said it's important. Such validation makes it more likely that students feel supported and successful, and that the speaker will contribute to the discussion again. Again, this is not a coincidence. Frazier, the teacher, taught his students to use phrases like that and weave their comments together so their ideas are connected, and those who have contributed feel the importance of their contributions. It helps connect and validate students as they learn. When they are doing that, some of them snap their fingers, meaning they agree, so they don't speak it, they just snap. And that means I agree or I support you. All of these techniques show how a teacher in small groups or even larger classrooms can intentionally establish a culture that reinforces both academic endeavor and a much stronger sense of belonging. And though it looks organic, there's nothing natural about it. It's a deliberate rewiring of social norms to maximize positive outcomes. Engineering the classroom to ensure positive peer-to-peer norms is about honoring young people and creating an environment that not only maximizes their learning but also their belonging. The pervading sense that school is for me and I am successful here. I'm almost done. Sorry. It's important to have high-quality extracurriculars also that aren't based on years of prior experience. It's hard for students to decide in grade 8 that they'd really like to be part of the basketball team, even if they haven't already spent years playing. But that's why we need other things like chess club and debate club, which we have. We do have a lot of extracurriculars that are not sports. School-wide rituals are also important to fostering a sense of belonging. And character education and social and emotional learning programs can also play a role. The best advice is to build a few priorities into the fabric of the school rather than buy a whole program to use in an isolated manner. Positive character traits should be caught, sought, and taught. And gratitude is a great example. When students make a habit of concretely expressing gratitude to other people in the school community, it confers mutual benefits. Open-ended opportunities to relax and connect outside of the classroom also foster the sense of belonging. In one school in Wales, for example, their leaders filled a common area with games that are easy to join. They added chessboards, card tables, decks of cards, and even a ping pong table where students could engage in positive social interaction in between classes. I don't think we could do that. We don't have enough time in between classes, but it's still an idea. Saying no to cell phones. These innovations can be powerful, but not on their own. The pool of smartphones and social media apps designed to distract is bound to undermine any expression of support after school sport or card table. The single most important thing schools can do is to restrict cell phone access for large parts of the school day. This doesn't mean banning phones. It just means setting rules. Forms like setting up cell phone lockers at the main entrance, requiring students to use cell phone collection baskets, or limiting use to cell phone approved zones in the school building. You can have your cell phone in your bag, but it must be turned off and cannot be visible during the school day. Not during lunch, not in the hall, not anywhere until after the last bell rings. If there's an emergency and you need to contact your parents, you can do that in the main office. That's it. Schools must create blocks of time when students can work in a manner that allows them to rebuild their attentional skills and experience the full value of connected social interaction. They must also protect students' opportunities to socialize with one another, allowing students to use cell phones as classroom tools for quick research or as calculators, for example, or to leave them turned on but silent, or to turn them on during lunch or other learning breaks, keeps them connected to their devices and disconnected from one another. There are other states that have tried this as well, and what they have said, it has transformed the school. Social time is spent talking to friends. It's so nice walking around the yard, seeing students actually interacting again, and no distractions during class. Consistent enforcement is key. You can't be the cool teacher and allow them to do this if we do have rules and things. Schools and district leaders should be prepared for doubt, skepticism, and pushback. We know that, and it would be coming. But I just wanted to bring it up because I feel very strongly that our kids need to interact with one another and not always on their cell phones. So that's it.
Thank you. No, if I could be so
But-
bold as to comment on your comment, but a
Sure.
lot of what you're talking about with the sense of belonging, connectiveness, validation of others, a lot of that I'm seeing with the Sources of Strength program at the high school. I'm hearing a lot of positive things from that. And I've even heard, actually from a couple of parents whose students were selected to be part of the group. I've heard